Okay, welcome back to this series in Visual Studio Code where we get deeper and deeper into Visual Studio. Right now we're going to look at modifying the layout. We're going to look at files. We're going to see as much screen code as possible, splitting the screen and that kind of stuff. And I'm going to show you what's out there. I personally like a clean space, as I've mentioned, and I also like to see a lot as opposed to clicking and scrolling. I don't like to click and scroll. Those motions tend to be wasted motions, so I like to see as much as possible. I have a giant monitor I'm looking at right now, for example. So let's look at some of the shortcuts again. Up here we got Control-Shift-E for search, Control-Shift-F, and let's say we're at this point and we hit Control-B and we've lost this point here, but if I want to find my search again, I can do Control-Shift-F and it pops right up. So if you do these very often, Control B, and you want to pop back and forth really fast, if you're using this a lot, I recommend at least learning some of these shortcuts so it'll save you time. And yes, you know, time is money. You can get home faster. So one of the commands that you're going to use quite a bit is if you can go up here to terminal, but I'm going to do a Control Shift tilde or Control tilde. Mine requires a shift, and then this window will pop right up right away, the terminal window. And I can do a clear here and clear that out. And something very important in Visual Studio Code, which we're going to get to later, but it's the command palette. And that would be Control-Shift-P. You might as well remember that now. This command palette, we're not going to talk about it much now, but it has all kinds of things that you need help with, like edit, clear edit history, decrease, anything you need in the settings and so forth will be in the command palette. So Control-Shift-P will bring that up. I wrote a script in Visual Studio Code that it actually was a Git script, and it would check in all my code and comments and everything. And I would hit Control-Shift-P here, and we'll show you that later, but that's how you get to a very important window. So there's another thing called Zen Mode, and that's where you only see code. And I haven't used this much. I like to have this right over here, ready to go to click on a moment's notice. But if you hit Control-K and then Z, this is Zen Mode, where all you see is code. And you get a lot of screen real estate here, and you still get your little mini map here, your scroll map is what it's called. Control-K, Z, Z as in Zen. If you choose to code like that, you can. Now, the other thing that we can do is start messing with multiple files. So remember, you can click and drag files. I do this often, like when I'm working with a web app. I kind of visualize the front end here, the middle tier here, the back end here, maybe the database here. I like to visualize how it's going back and forth from the database to the front end. And so I'll move my files around however I feel like they flow, a top to bottom in a sort of model. But there's a lot more you can do here in this example. If you drag and drop here, for example, it will pop open a split window. And I think you can even do it again. If we take one of these, pop it here, we can get up to 3 windows. I don't like this because it starts to cut things off, and then I've got to come down here and scroll. I don't like to do this too much. I might do a split window here. I might do it one time, but I wouldn't do it twice. Now, depending on where you drop this, notice how it changes. If you drop it, for example, up here like that, it will split it top and bottom. And that's pretty cool too if that's how you choose to code. I would do this more if I was doing a file comparison. Usually the files I work on are so big, I end up having to scroll a lot, so I wouldn't do this very often either. But I'm going to show you a file difference here pretty soon. And when we do that, we can look at the differences between the files, and that's a very important thing to do, especially when you're comparing code. So there's a lot of times where you want to compare two files that are similar to see if anything changed, especially if you do a backup or something, or maybe you want to reverse something. You want to see. Usually what happens is I'll break something when I'm working, and I'll want to see, what did I do? I've done so much. Maybe I broke something I didn't think I would break, and I go back and like, oh yeah, I made that change. I can undo that and fix what I broke, because some of these applications get very complex. So I've got these two files that are a little different, but they're similar. What you can do is you can right click and do select for compare, and then it's sort of got it in memory. Then you right click and go compare with selected, and look at that. It shows the differences line by line. This one has HTML, this one has HTMLS. This one has generalized word, this one does not. It actually shows you the difference. Very powerful thing to see in file comparison, and it does a lot more than that, but for now that's all we need to know.